welcome back to N2S. So today for you we're going to be fitting the short shifter on the i30N. I've heard a fair bit about this mod and people have given it rave reviews, so it's definitely something I've been looking forward to do. It's a bit more involved than what you first might think, so you've got to get in the engine bay, remove a fair bit of stuff under there like the battery, ECU, etc., and then it goes on the gearbox linkage to the gear stick. There's loads of adjustment in it. You can make it a really short throw or similar to OEM, just a little bit shorter. So yeah, we've got a Forge short shifter. There's the code. It's FMSS3 is the code on this one for the i30N. But like I say, looking forward to this. Let's get it on. First and foremost, we're going to remove the battery. So 10mm spanner. Take off the negative first. Then move on to the positive. Now the battery's disconnected, we move on to this 13mm. Socket and ratchet with extension is best for this one. Remove the 13mm bolt and the bracket that holds the battery in place. Now remove the battery and place to one side. Now it's time to remove the ECU. So we've got two clips on top, one on either side. They pull up here and here. We've got three 10mm bolts. Just crack them off to start off with. I've left a couple of bolts in just to keep the ECU secure. Lift these clips on top and pull upwards. This will release the connectors on the top of the ECU. Pull them gently and they will clip out and come up. Now remove the remaining two bolts. Now lift off the connectors and the ECU is free to pull out. Put that one somewhere safe and dry. So now moving on to removing the battery tray. We've got two 10mm bolts and three 13mm bolts. Now ready to remove the battery tray. Pull up and slide the positive terminal out from the left hand side to release the battery tray. We can now move the positive terminal out of the way and you can clearly now see we've got plenty of room to work on the gear linkage. So now we're in and we've got the battery tray out. You can see the linkages here and you can also see the cables from the gear stick coming to them. So these have got to be removed first. Flat bladed screwdriver should do that, and then we'll look at removing the linkages after that. So you can see here, you pop your flat blade in and bend it back to get these two out. You can see I've released this one. Pop that out and remove there. You can clearly see this linkage now, and then we've got the other one to do just in the back there. So next it's these three that have got to be removed for the gear linkage. If you can crack these off, so crack them, and once you've cracked all three, it should be easy enough to just undo by hand. Then what we're going to do with these, we should be able to just wiggle, give them a good wiggle, and off it pops. Do the same with these two, so good wiggle. There you have. Right, so you can see clearly the differences between the short shift and the original. I've set them out side by side. So this obviously replaces this piece, and you can see the difference. This can be adjusted, so that way's shorter. They say that bang in the middle is what most people prefer, and you can see that this piece is a lot closer. Again, people say that bang in the middle is what most people prefer, but this is on the shorter end of the short shift. This can be adjusted. If you leave them finger tight, you can adjust it when it's on the car. So now we're going to replace this piece of the gear linkage with the new forge piece, and to do that, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to pop this cover off. There's a circlip underneath. Re-grease it, pop the new piece on, and pop it back together. Flat bladed screwdriver, if you need it, to pop that off. Here, you can see that circlip. Hopefully you can see that. Let's get that in view. Here. So we're going to be popping this off and then flicking it out here, okay? They do spring, so you've got to watch them. There's the circlip. We're going to be reusing that. This should nice and easily slip out. The new forge one, and it goes. Circle it back on. And normally you can pop these back in. Click, we're done. So you can see that's the new one on. We're going to put a bit of grease on here. It's fine as it is, because there is some grease, but I'm just going to top it up to make sure there's plenty in that cap. Right, once that's greased, you've got a piece of grease in there, a bit around there, you just pop that back on, like so. So that is the end product that we're going to be fitting back to the vehicle. And these are what to keep if you're going to be taking it back off at any point. Right, as you can see, I've placed the linkage back on now. They only go one way, so don't force them. Just a little wiggle and they'll slide onto the threaded spindles. So that's back on. Next we're going to finger tight everything up and then try it in the car and see what we think. So I've finger tightened the nuts and popped the cables back on. I've tested it, I've tested the throw, and I'm not happy. It's a little bit too short for my liking, so I'm going to whip it off. I'm going to adjust those spindles that hold the cables on, because that's what the adjustment of the throw is, and I'm going to pop it back on. I'm going to go about halfway on each of them and pop it back on and have another look. So to adjust the forge, you simply crack these off, and then you'll see that you can slide it backwards and forwards. So I'm going to go just off centre, nearly in the middle, but just very slightly off centre towards the linkage here, and tighten that back up. I'm going to do the same with the other and then pop it back on. Again, just crack that one off and you've got that adjustment. I'm going to put it just off centre. And pop that one back on as well. Right, now we're happy with that. Got the adjustment that we want. We're going to put it all back together in reverse order. So this is where it becomes handy if you've got one of these boxes. It's so much simpler to see what order things going. I know this isn't a huge amount, but I've done engine replacements before, and having things in order in a place is so much easier. So obviously that's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth thing that we've removed, and now we're going to just go backwards and pop it all back together. So first we do up the linkage nuts, 14mm. Then we pop back in the R-clips to hold the cables onto the linkage. Get the battery tray back in after giving it a quick clean. There's 3 13mm bolts to hold the battery tray. You need to make sure that you slide the positive terminal back through the battery tray and then pop the 10mm bolts back in as well. Tighten everything up. Now put the ECU back in carefully. Rest the connectors on top. Make sure it's lined up, and then put the 3 bolts back in and tighten. Then push the connectors in and push down. Well, once the battery's in and you've got it kind of lined up where you want it, roughly in the middle, there is some notches to keep it in place. You've got this piece, and I found the best way was just to slide it in afterwards. Then pop the terminals back on, positive first, then negative, and then tighten up with a 10mm spanner. And finally, put the battery bracket 13mm bolt back in. So that concludes the install of the short shift on the i30N. I hope you've enjoyed the video and it's given you all the information that you need to do it yourself. If you've liked this video, why not subscribe? Also, check out the other great content by clicking on these links. See you in the next one.